What is up, guys? So today I'm going to be teaching you how to drive a manual car. I remember when I was first planning on buying a manual car, I was extremely nervous because I've never driven stick before, and I always knew that I wanted to drive a manual, but I was scared, one, that once I learned how to do it, I wasn't going to like it and it was going to be too much work, and I was scared that if that wasn't the case, that I would like it and I just wouldn't get good enough and I'd buy a car. And at that point I was a junior in high school, and I was if I buy a car and I don't get good at driving it, that's going to be a really big issue. And thankfully that didn't happen, but when I did end up buying a manual car, it ended up being the best decision of my life. So today I'm going to be teaching you guys how to drive stick. I'm going to tell you basically the basics on what you need to know. So when it comes to learning to driving stick, it is really helpful to have a friend that might have a manual car to teach you, because you can learn the basics from a video and you'll get a better mental understanding, which is, don't get me wrong, that's extremely important when it comes to learning to drive a stick, is understanding how things work. But the best way for you to truly learn is by getting in a car and doing it. I remember when I was back in high school, I had a friend who had a manual really old 1997 Ford Ranger truck, extremely different than any car I've ever bought, but that's where I learned to drive stick in. And it was honestly a great way for me to learn. But before that, I remember I was searching YouTube every single night, watching videos on how to drive stick. So this is going to be my interpretation of what I feel is really important when it comes to learning. And yeah, let's get started. All right, so let's start off with the stick shift in general. So when you first get in your manual car that you're going to learn how to drive stick in, first off, there's obviously three pedals. There's the clutch, the brake, and the gas. So first off, what you want to do is you want to get your seat into a place where it's comfortable, where you could fully engage the clutch. You don't want your seat to be too close to where you're fully engaging the clutch and you feel like you're hitting your knee on something, and you don't want to be too far back where your leg's fully extended and you're not able to fully engage the clutch. The next thing you want to do is you want to look at your gear shift and get comfortable with it just in your hand. So what you want to do is you want to fully engage the clutch, like I was showing back here, fully engaged, and then just get comfortable with where the gears are. So up and to the left is always going to be first gear. Directly below that is second gear. And then up to an angle, that's third. Straight back down is fourth. Up to the left is fifth. If you have a 5-speed manual transmission, this will be your last gear. I drive a 6-speed, so there's a 6th gear down here. And for reverse in this car, clutch fully engaged, you pull up and over to the left, and then you can see you're in reverse. And then back into neutral. So like I was saying before, you want to get extremely comfortable where all the gears are, so that when you're driving, you don't have to think about where the gears are. You don't have to look down. You can kind of just throw where it has to go. When you learn, you're basically going to want to be driving in a parking lot or in a neighborhood. So you're going to be wanting to stay in first, second, maybe third gear. All right, so now I'm going to try and explain with a diagram with my hands of what you want to be doing with your feet. So when you go to start in first gear, so say this is the clutch pedal and this is the gas pedal. When you go into first gear, you want to put the clutch all the way in, so all the way engaged, which is all the way down, and you want to keep your foot off the gas. You want to put the car in first gear, and then every single clutch has a catching point. Now every single manual car is different, but they're all very similar at the same time. So every clutch has a catching point, which basically when you get to the catching point on this car is 45 degrees, so probably right here. And then once you hit that catching point, that's when you want to start applying gas. So in this car, my catching point's around 45 degrees, so I'll get to here. So I'll have the car in first gear, I'll let the clutch off to around this point, and then when you first start learning, you want to blip the gas to probably around 25 or 2,000 to 2,500 RPMs. So you'll rev it up to that, and then you're going to very slowly start to let off the clutch as you start to apply the gas. And it's extremely slow. A good thing to keep in mind is that when you're driving stick, the slower you let off the clutch, the smoother and the better transition it's gonna be. So again, if I'm up, I put the car in first gear. So I'm gonna go clutch all the way in, put the car in first gear, bring the car to that catching point, rev the car to around 2,000 to 2,500 RPMs, and then slowly transition off the clutch while giving it gas. And then you'll be driving. So let's do an example of that right here. All right, so your e-brake's gonna be up when you go to start. E-brake down. So right now I'm in neutral. I'm gonna go clutch all the way in, put the car in first gear, I'm gonna get to that catching point, rev the car up a little bit, and then slowly let off the clutch. And now I'm driving. Now first gear in most cars is gonna be anywhere from just starting all the way up to maybe 10 to 20 miles an hour at most. By that point, you're gonna be wanting to go into second gear. Another thing to keep in mind is that when you're driving a stick, you go in first gear from a dead stop, but other than that, you never go back into first gear. If you're downshifting, you'll go from fourth to third, third to second, but you'll never go from second to first. If you do, you'll redline basically instantly. Unless you're driving like 10 miles an hour, you can shift back into first gear, but other than that, you're never shifting back into first gear. And that's definitely something to keep in mind. Now, once you're driving in first and you want to come to a stop, you want to go clutch in, put the car back into neutral, and you could shake it to make sure you're in neutral. And once you're in neutral, you can get on the brake and you can stop. So once you're moving, it's a lot less likely for people to stall. You're more likely going to stall on starts and stops. So you really want to focus on your first gear starts. So like when you're learning to drive, you want to go clutch in, first gear, go. Now I'm rolling, and then stop. Neutral, brake. And then you want to go clutch in, first gear, start driving, go, get your foot fully off the clutch, and then you want to go clutch in, neutral, brake. And that's going to be super important when it comes to driving, because if you're in traffic or there's people behind you, when you first start driving stick, it's kind of nerve-wracking. Like, you get nervous with people behind you, they might honk their horn at you, but if you're learning and you're not fully comfortable with that, you're more likely to stall, and then you got to turn your car off and turn it back, or the car turns off and then you got to turn the car back on, and it could be a giant headache. And it's kind of embarrassing, but at the same time it's not. So basically just take your time, stay in neighborhoods, stay in parking lots while you're learning, and you'll just get the best out of it. Okay, so now I'm going to show you guys what my feet do when I go to start. So right now I'm in neutral. I'm going to go clutch all the way in, put the car in first gear. I'm going to take my foot off the brake, let the clutch to that catching point, and then start applying gas, and very slowly come off the clutch while I give it more gas. And now I'm rolling. Now I'm going like 8 miles an hour in first gear. Now I want to come to a stop. I'm going to go clutch in, brake, put the car in neutral, take the foot off the clutch, and stop. Let's do this one more time. So open the door so you get a little better view. We're gonna go clutch in, first gear, foot off the brake, alright, so let's do some driving right here. So right now I'm at a complete stop, my foot's on the brake. I'm gonna go clutch all the way in, into first gear, hit that catching point, start applying gas, and slowly let off the clutch. And now I'm off the clutch. See how that took like 3 or 4 seconds? And it was extremely smooth. The slower that you are off the clutch, the better you're gonna be. Now, I'm driving, say I wanna go into second gear. I'm gonna go clutch all the way in, foot off the gas, pull it to second, off the clutch, give it gas at the catching point, and we're good. Now I'm driving in second gear. Everything's good. Coming up to a stop sign, so I'm gonna go clutch in, put my car in neutral, check to make sure it's neutral, put my foot off on the brake, foot off the clutch, and come to a complete stop. And we're good. Now say I'm making a left here. So I put my blinker on, clutch all the way in, first gear, same thing, slowly come off the clutch while giving it gas. And now I'm off the clutch, and we're good. Want to go into second, clutch in, second, we're good. Off the clutch. Now we're just coasting. When you're first learning to drive stick, it can seem like a lot and it can seem very overwhelming, but once you start to get the hang of it, it's really not that much. It's not a hard thing to learn, but it's kind of it's hard to master. Like, I'm still learning to drive stick every single day. I've been driving for 3 years and I'm still nowhere near perfect. No one's perfect. Every single day you get in your car, you learn something new, you get better, you're always practicing, and that's kind of why I love it, because like, it's always something to practice. No matter where you're going, what you're doing, you're always learning new things about your car and driving a manual in general, and it's so satisfying just to get better and be able to have fun with your car. Say I wanted to do a downshift here. I'm going to make a completely another video on a downshift, but I'm in 3rd gear right now at 1500 RPMs going 25 miles an hour. Say I want to downshift into 2nd, I would go clutch in, I would rev match, 2nd gear, slowly let off the clutch, and now I'm in 2nd at 2500 RPMs going the same speed. Now say I'm coming up to a stop, clutch in, neutral, brake. And it's that simple. So when you're starting, say you're coming up to a stop sign, 9 out of 10 times, if you know you're gonna stop, no matter what gear you're in, you can clutch in, put the car in neutral, and then just brake all the way to a stop. Now you're able to downshift, and I'll make a whole nother video on downshifting, but I remember when I first started driving stick, I've been driving for around 3 years now, but for the first, I'd say, year I drove stick, even if I was slowing down, like if I wasn't necessarily coming to a stop, but I was just slowing down where I'd have to change gears and I didn't want to downshift, I would clutch in, go into neutral, slow down until I got to that speed that I needed to get to, and let's say I needed to speed up again, and I'm going 20 miles an hour, I need to get back in gear, I'll just go clutch in from neutral, put my car in 3rd gear, and then just start driving from there. I would rarely downshift, and you don't have to downshift. There's a whole bunch of techniques when it comes to driving stick, like heel towing, downshifting, rev matching. There's a whole bunch of things that are really helpful when driving stick, but not necessary. But when it comes down to learning, you just want to learn the basics and just get the hang of it and be able to get from point A to point B, and the rest will all follow. So, just to review, when you're learning, main things you really want to focus on is getting comfortable with the manual transmission itself and where all the gears are, so when you're driving you don't have to look down and see where they are. And you want to get extremely comfortable with the clutch that's in your car. Some clutches will be really light and easy to engage, and they'll be like a shorter throw, a shorter distance, and some clutches like the one in this Mustang, they're pretty heavy and you're gonna have to use a little more force when engaging it, but the catching points are usually easier. Like, this car is extremely easy, it's extremely smooth to drive, and it has a pretty long first gear, so like it's not that much of an issue. In my last car, the clutch was a little bit lighter and it was a little bit more touchy, so you had to be a little longer on the clutch when you're letting off of it and give it a little less gas. And it also had an extremely short first gear, so you'd go into first and then you'd be making a turn, and then you basically have to be in 2nd gear before you even got out of that turn. Extremely short first gear. So that's just things about your car that you have that you want to get to know, and you want to know how your car works to get more comfortable with it. Like I said previously, another thing you want to keep in mind is the slower you come off the clutch, the better chance you will have of not stalling and staying smooth. And once you learn where that catching point is, you'll get a lot more comfortable with finding it, and you're gonna have to think a lot less about how much gas you need to give it when you're starting. But once you start rolling, getting into 2nd gear, 3rd gear, 4th gear, it'll be a lot less meticulous with the clutch. So basically you're not going to have to be so slow with, like, as if you're in 1st gear, you're not going to stall. So you can basically put the clutch in, put the car into gear, and basically just let off the clutch and get back on the gas, and like it'll be smooth, you'll have no issues, it'll be perfectly fine. For anybody out there who is nervous about buying a manual car, they feel like they want to but they don't know how to drive stick, or they're not sure if they're gonna like it, my recommendation would be to just go for it. I was extremely scared before I ever had a manual car. I didn't know if I was gonna like it, I didn't know if I was gonna learn to drive, I didn't know if I'd get good at it, but in the end of the day, it was the best decision I ever made. I love driving stick. I find it extremely therapeutic. Anytime I'm in a bad mood, or if I'm in a really good mood, the best way for me to clear my head is just drive. I mean, I don't know how to really explain it, but like, you just feel so connected and grounded, and it's so engaging and satisfying to drive a manual car, especially once you get comfortable with it and good at it, and you can really do whatever you want. It's one of the best feelings in the world, and I encourage everybody to go out there and learn. I mean, I always call it anti-theft of 2020. I mean, no one's stealing this car because not many people know how to drive a manual. If anyone wanted to get in my car and drive it, they can't. But that's also a downfall. I mean, if you have friends that don't know how to drive stick, and say you're with them, you drove them somewhere, you're out somewhere, and say, God forbid, something happens to you and they need to drive your car, they might not be able to. So I mean, I'm trying to teach my friends how to drive stick. I'll probably film videos with teaching them. I've taught 1 or 2 of them already, and they've all done a good job. I feel like the biggest part is just mentally grasping what is happening with the car when you're driving it, and once you understand that, it becomes a lot easier to make the car do what you need it to do. Alright guys, I hope that was helpful. I hope you learned something from this video. I'm gonna make more parts in the future on different parts of driving that are a little past basic, so like rev matching, downshifting, etc. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Please leave a comment if you have any more questions. I'll answer all of them. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I hope you guys have a good day. Peace.